Hey guys, welcome back to the 27th episode of Continuously Refined. I'm Shayna,
And I'm Sicily.
and we are talking all things summer, the sun, and sunscreen. Both Cicely and I just got back from vacations, and so we are so excited to jump into our normal routine and getting back into it, also recording podcasts. And with that comes laying out in the sun because it is summertime. And so we really wanted to take time to inform y'all. And we have done research on this about how harmful sunscreen is to our health. And that is like the normal sunscreen that we are pulling off of the shelves that the media and scientists and our doctors are telling us you need sunscreen if you don't want to get skin cancer. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I think you and I have both had conversations between each other and then also with other people about this topic and about sunscreen and the sun being good or bad for you and just all of those things. And so we really just wanted to film an episode and teach you guys all about it because we put in the time, like Shanna said, to kind of look into it some more. And just to start, like very brief research, we very quickly found that 90% of the sunscreens that we buy at the store are filled with harmful chemicals. Like 90% of that bottle is harmful. And you can find better alternatives, which we'll talk about, like mineral sunscreens and zinc sunscreens. But the average sunscreen that we're all buying, that we've been putting on our bodies since we were kids, are very harmful and do have those harmful chemicals in them.
Terrible. It's so scary. They're giving us cancer. Everybody
Yes.
listen up.
Yep. And so like there are ways, and we'll get into this more, that you can naturally stop burning. So when you kind of remove heavy metals out of your system or you get rid of eating seed oils. And I was telling Shanna earlier today, like it's something that I've noticed for myself that has helped a lot this summer is like I have been putting on a little bit of sunscreen, but I normally am someone that has to reapply like 6 times throughout the day if I'm laying by the pool. And I haven't reapplied at all, and I've yet to get burned this summer. And I think that just really shows like I haven't been eating seed oils, and we have worked so hard to remove heavy metals from our system. And like you really do see a difference once you start to look into all of this.
I'm so excited to jump into this episode because I think it'll give people a lot of knowledge that they just are not aware of. I mean, sunscreen is just a thing that we've been taught we need to put on when we go in the sun. So I'm really
That's so
excited. And
true.
this is going to jump into the evolution of sunscreen. Who knew it had such
Yeah.
a vast history?
Yeah. So I love looking at like the cause of something. Like, how did we get to the point that we are today? And sunscreen, when you think back to like very old, like ancient days, it's like, okay, well, they were out in the sun. Like in Egypt in 4000 BC, like they were out in the sun building those pyramids all day long. That is all they did. And they used things to protect themselves from the sun, but they didn't have the chemical sunscreens that we have now. So they used things like rice bran extract, jasmine, lupine extract, and that all protected them from the sun. But those were all natural whole things that they were getting. They weren't having to process them in some way. Even in Greece, they used things like olive oil and sand. You had ancient India that used zinc oxide, which is now a key mineral sunscreen ingredient. In the Middle Stone Ages, they used red rock pigments and other things that like helped them to even repel insects and not only the sun. Native Americans used this chalky aspen tree bark, which provided SPF. They used sunflower oil and pine needles. Polar indigenous people used bone and leather or even wood goggles to protect their eyes from the sun glare off ice. There were so many different things that they were finding in resources that were just around them that were able to protect them from the sun. And then kind of moving into early modern, when you started to get into like the science and industry industrial era, you had like scientists in Germany that first kind of discovered UV radiation, and they came up with the first sunscreen chemical ointment, but it still didn't have all the things that we have in it today. Then you kind of jump to the USA in 1936 when the founder of L'Oreal launched the first commercial sunscreen. And in World War II, Benjamin Green created what was called a red vet pet, which is for soldiers, and it became what we now know as copper tone suntan cream.
So this is like less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So the bottles of sunscreen that we see on the shelves were not a thing. What this is 90 years ago. Like they just were created 90 years ago, which I think is important. And something Cicely and I talk about is like, oh, our grandparents always say, oh, well, I used to eat that way. Why is it becoming such an issue?
Yep.
Well, the way you used to eat, the ingredients are different now than it is 30 years ago. And I think this is a perfect example. When our grandparents were growing up, sunscreen was just becoming a thing.
Yeah. And you didn't even have ratings to the levels of SPF. Like back then, this was the SPF they were using. This was whatever sunscreen they were using. It wasn't until the 1970s when a Swiss chemist developed modern SPF rating and decided that there'd be all these different filters and levels to the SPF you're putting on your body. And this is when sunscreen really started to first shift and include all those synthetic chemicals and nanoparticles because it was easier to use. It stayed on the shelf longer. They believed that originally that would help our skin more. And however, we've started to learn that with more modern environmental and health concerns, that there have been studies that show that environmentally, the sunscreen we now use impacts the environment in terrible ways. And there's things like coral bleaching in tourism areas. And there's also things that just impact our skin and cause irritation. And in 2018, we saw the first state, which was Hawaii, that banned some of these chemicals that Shayna will talk about in a second because they were damaging the environment. So they weren't even banned for reasons that they impact the human body or the human skin. And recent findings are really showing that these chemical sunscreen ingredients do impact us poorly and that we've been using them for all these years because we originally thought they would prevent cancer, and we're now finding that they might actually cause cancer for us.
It's crazy. I think it's like most things in our now health kind of what is this called? Like an awakening that everybody's
Yeah.
having. Like, oh, where is all this rise in cancer rate and disease coming from? And something we just want to talk about today is the impact that sunscreen is having on it. So, if you look on the back of a sunscreen bottle, we love to talk about ingredients. Well, two of the most red flashing, like alarming ingredients that you need to be aware of in these sunscreen is oxybenzone, which is and so oxybenzone and ready? Oxinox, ox,
You got it.
octinoxate. I tried so many times to get that right. Oxinoxate. So those two things, we can like link it in the show notes so you guys can be aware of those two ingredients. Both of those ingredients, which is in every single mainstream sunscreen that you see on the shelf, have been identified as endocrine and hormone disruptors, which we've talked about in the past, which just overall means that they interfere with the body's hormone systems because they're a chemical and they're not supposed to be put in us. So when you put this sunscreen on your skin, which your skin is an organ, it is immediately extracted and put into the bloodstream, which now you are being exposed to these extremely harmful chemicals that cause reproductive harm. They alter your hormone levels. It interferes with your androgen and progesterone signaling, and that then impacts your reproductive organs and your development. These two chemicals, oxybenzone and octinoxate, have been shown to decrease testosterone in boys and increase the probability of endometriosis in girls. There's a third chemical called benzene, which is also found in these sunscreens. And scientifically, you can search it up. It is out there for public knowledge. It is a chemical that causes cancer that we are putting on our skin, lathering on our children's skin, that gets leached into our bloodstream and is causing these issues. So, benzene, the chemical, it weakens the immune system. It causes fertility issues, as well as anemia and leukemia, which is a very common cancer. So it's just mind-boggling to me that they are allowed to sell sunscreen without like warning labels with these things in it. So because your skin is such a easy way for it to leach into your bloodstream, we need to be cautious of what we're putting on our bodies. And like we've talked about with our healthcare products or our facial things, like our the lotions we're using, the facial cleansers we're using, sunscreen is one of them, and it is so insanely toxic.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense when you think about it because it's like, okay, a lotion, like, yeah, it might be made up of like these things, but when you think of a sunscreen, it's like, well, how is it really protecting my skin from the sun? Like, it must have all these really powerful chemicals to avoid something as powerful as the sun and the UV rays from the sun. Most of the so some of them are topical creams, right? We'll put on our body, but a lot of them are all these sprays. And I think about especially when you are a child and you're constantly using these sprays on your children because that's a lot easier to put on, right? Than a topical cream. The aerosol sprays, however, are the worst thing you could be using on yourself, on your children, on anyone around you.
Yeah, that's the
They,
first thing that I would do if you are listening is throw out your aerosol sunscreens. If
yep.
you don't want to make the change to all natural sunscreens, you're taking that risk. But the aerosol sprays are the worst possible things. Throw those
Yes.
out immediately and lather your kids up with your hand.
100%. They contain a couple different chemicals, but they contain xylene and formaldehyde. And formaldehyde specifically is known as a human carcinogen. It is linked to throat cancer and directly to leukemia. And it can also cause a lot of skin irritations, rashes. It also causes a lot of respiratory issues. You're spraying it, so you're naturally inhaling it. It is known for especially causing lung irritation in your kids. And it can also include fragrances. We know that every different sunscreen has a different smell, and a lot of us use a different sunscreen because we like the smell of that one better. And we'll do a whole other episode on fragrances and how terrible they are. But we have heard so many doctors say that if you're going to start with one thing to cut out as a hormone disruptor, cut out fragrances. And so your sunscreens that have that wonderful smell that you love, those are probably disrupting with your hormones more than anything else you're using at the moment. They can also include phthalates and parabens, and parabens are they essentially mimic estrogen in your body and interfere with your endocrine system almost immediately. And they're directly linked to tons of reproductive issues, irregular menstrual cycles, and infertility. And so, all these things that we're talking about, especially if you're around our age or you're younger, you're wanting to have kids one day, they're things to really pay attention to now because they will impact you later, even if you're not seeing the effects of them right now.
It's super, super scary. And I think from a very young age, we've been told that the sun can cause skin cancer, and therefore you need to lather yourself with sunscreen. And we know that the sun is really, really powerful and it can burn. You can get sunburned, and that can lead to melanoma and skin cancer and things like that. But the sun is also, I mean, it was given to us by God. It is so insanely powerful in a harmful way, but also in an extremely beneficial way. And I think that everyone should get daily sun exposure if they can and if they have access to it. It is so healing. We know that it increases your dopamine. You've gone outside or played an outdoor activity and you just feel better because it increases your dopamine. So you're getting an energy boost and getting into a better mood because of dopamine. It can also really help with your circadian rhythm. We are supposed to wake up when the sun rises and go to sleep when it sets. And so it's important for us to get outside so our body knows what time it is based off of the sun. And it really is important in vitamin D synthesis. So your body cannot synthesize vitamin D if it is not exposed to the sun. And so the sun then helps you get vitamin D, and so then your body can synthesize it. So it's really important that every day you are getting sun exposure. My favorite thing to do, and I know Cicely talks about this, so minimum 20 minutes in the sun, and it is really helpful if you get that in the morning because the morning sun is not as strong and not as potent, so you're not going to get sunburned. So it's okay to go sit out in the morning in the sun without any form of sun protection or sunscreen, and that can also get your body a lot more used to the sun. So, one thing that I heard was if you are going on a vacation. So, we went to Costa Rica in March and the UV was a 13, like so insanely strong. You need to be protecting your body from the sun if you're going to go sit out for a long period of time when there's that peak UV. So one of the best things that you can do for your body is those first maybe 1 or 2 days is slowly start to get your skin used to the sun. So go and sit out in the sun from 9 to 11 and then go inside for the rest of the day and get your body used to producing that melanin production. So when your eyes see the sun, it signals to your brain that you should be producing melanin, which is cells in your skin that protect it from the sun. That's why we get tan. When we get tan, that is increased melanin production. So you're getting tan rather than getting sunburn. So it's really important that I've become kind of anti sunglasses
Yeah.
because, as much as it is important to protect your eyes from the sun, if you're going to be out in the sun for a very long period of time, it's very strong. But sunglasses are shielding your eyes from the sun. So your body doesn't know that it needs to be producing melanin because it thinks you're sitting in the shade. So that's something that I was kind of like, awe, and it makes sense. Your eyes are an extension of your brain. And so your eyes signal to your brain when it then needs to signal and send out more melanin. Something that Cicely touched on earlier, and I'd love to hear more about your kind of experience with this, is how decreasing seed oils and decreasing the inflammation in your body has led to you having less sunburns.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it makes sense if we think about these things because we've talked about how before our grandparents, but in older ages, like they didn't get burned sitting out in the sun for forever because they weren't ingesting tons of seed oils at the time and they didn't have all these heavy metals in their body. And once you start to cut those things out, your body is more that gets able to produce the things that it's meant to produce. And it's not trying to fight off all these random things that are in your body. Heavy metals in your body aren't attracting the sun like they normally are. Your body's able to produce things to fight the sun properly. And it's also able to absorb the sun in different ways. And I have literally the fairest skin ever, and I have not gotten burned once this summer. And that even included sitting in the Texas sun for 2 weeks while I was there with a UV of 10 and 11 every day. And like all of my friends know that I always am the first to get burned. And so that has been incredible of
Always.
like, yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm still gonna put on sunscreen, but I'm gonna put on a 30 in the morning and that's it. I apply it once and I'll put a mineral sunscreen on my face. I do still like really watch my sunscreen on my face, but the rest of my body is able to just process it differently. And I haven't gotten burned, which has been so incredible. And then we started looking into this more. And now my whole real For You page is everything about how to avoid seed oils to help with the sun or different foods you can eat. Like you can really go down a rabbit hole and see, oh my gosh, if you eat this while sitting in the sun, this will help. And the same thing Shayna was saying with slowly exposing yourself to the sun. I really focused on that at the beginning of, okay, I'll sit out for 30 minutes. The next day I'll sit out for an hour. I didn't jump right in on the very first time and sit out for 6 hours in the sun on my first day of the summer.
And I think it's really important to make note of that is even if you are eating as clean as can be and you're sitting out and baking yourself in a UV of 11 or 12 for 6 to 7 hours, you are most likely going to get sunburned. The sun is strong, and we know that. We don't want anyone to get sunburned. So it's important to understand the difference between us as, 20 something year old girls who love to bake in the sun for hours. In that case, you should be protecting the sun. You should be out in the sun for 45 minutes, taking a break in the shade for 20. Out in the sun for 40 minutes, taking a break in the shade for 20 because it's important. But there's other things that we can do internally, like what we're eating, that also can help our skin kind of not get so burned from the sun. And like Cicely said, decreasing the seed oils, decreasing heavy metals. You can also, in the summertime, it's really awesome to load up or on what's called polyphenols. So these are things like green teas and matcha, and polyphenols are really good and really amplify your skin to protect against the sun. You can eat more things with chlorophyll in them, like leafy greens, things that are more antioxidant rich, like berries, high vitamin C, strawberries, again, berries, oranges, and electrolytes. Really great because these electrolytes and minerals, when you're putting them in your water or drinking electrolyte packets, they help keep the skin hydrated. And when the skin's more hydrated, it's able to better protect from the sun. And something that I've been doing is trying out different healthy sunscreens. So not all sunscreen is bad, and there are a lot of healthier alternatives. I've started using one called Sol and Sky, SOL and Sky. It is a beef tallow based sunscreen, and I love it. It's amazing. I lather it on my face. It doesn't make me break out all over my body. You just need a little bit, and it's really healthy and it completely protects me from the skin as well as the things that I'm eating. I've noticed that this one really helps.
Yeah, so I just kind of want to do a little recap of everything that we've talked about. And this is not us telling you to avoid the sun. In fact, in the complete opposite, go in the sun because it is one of the best things for you and it is a natural thing that God created for us. But switch to those more natural sunscreens. And like Shayna said earlier, if you're not going to switch to a zinc-based sunscreen or to beef tallow, then at least get rid of your aerosol spray sunscreens and stick with your topical creams. Get those away from your children, everything like that, because back in the day, like they weren't using those and they weren't using these harsh chemicals that we're now putting on our body. Zinc-based stuff is something that they had started using, and that's really the best that we can find around us now.
These episodes are some of my favorite to record because I feel like it's us doing the research that we love to learn about and then getting to share it with you guys. So I hope you learn one or everything new about the sun and sunscreen and how harmful it can be for you. Sunscreen, how harmful sunscreen can be for you, and that you make a change to better overall be a healthier person, to feel better and to not get burned in the sun. That's really what we're hoping to do. In the middle of July, we all want to go hang out in the sun and hang out at the pool and the beach. And so hopefully this is a better way to do it for yourself and your family and everyone around you.
Yeah. And we are definitely back. We will actually be posting every 2 weeks, like we have been saying we will. We're done with our vacations for the moment. And so we're going to be back into it. We are still recording the podcast, even though we may not be physically together. But so, yeah, with that being said, we will talk to you guys again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.